And I made a commitment to myself that night on two things. Number one, I verified that I absolutely did want to put on concerts for a living. But number two, I also told myself I'd never let myself or anybody else limit how high I could go.
You have found Authentic Business Adventures, the business program that brings you the struggle stories and triumphant successes of business owners across the land. Downloadable audio episodes can be found in the podcast link found at drawincustomers.com. We are locally underwritten by the Bank of Sun Prairie, Calls on Call Extraordinary Answering Service, as well as the Bold Business Book. And today we're welcoming / preparing to learn from Walter Kinzie of Kinzie Foods. And Walter, before I get you going here, I just want to let the audience know Walter has done way more than I'm going to dare say most of my guests, certainly more than me. So I'm excited to talk to you. Walter, how is it going today?
Man, pleasure's all mine. I'm grateful for this opportunity. And, it's a great day. And, it's an interesting day in America. But
yeah, it is.
Across the board, I'm seeing a whole lot more optimism and excitement than maybe heartbreak. So I'm encouraged by that, and really, really happy that there seems to be at least some resolution. That's the interesting thing about elections is so much of the day after isn't about who won or who lost. It's also just about that process is over and we know what the path forward is. And so anyway, it's a overall an optimistic and great day in America.
Yeah, it's I don't know. I treat it like a car accident where you finally got the estimate.
That's right. That's right. So, and
I've been waiting for this day from the insurance company. We've been having this looming over our head, causing all kinds of turmoil, I suppose, depending upon how much you want to be open to the turmoil or not.
Well, so many things in business and in life. It's you just got to put one foot in front of the other every single day. And but there's always relief when you at least know what the path forward is going to be. And so there's significant metaphors that absolutely apply in business and in life when you look at kind of the conclusion of what we're seeing right now in America.
Yeah, I suppose it's just like the sales thing, right? You'll take a yes, you'll take a no, but the maybes are the worst.
The maybes are the worst.
Now, whether it's a yes or no for what you got, that's what it is. So acknowledge, improvise, and move on.
In retail, it's called a be back, and those are as Ted Lasso, as the show Ted Lasso says, it's the hope that'll kill you. In retail, it's that be back that's like, oh, I bet they'll be back, and you just wait, and then you never see it, and it's.
I've never heard that before. I got to check that out. That's awesome.
Yeah, that's right. So,
so let's start with Kinzie Foods. Walter, what is Kinzie Foods?
Well, it's been a fun business for us. It was a company that was started by accident. Frankly, I did not set out and say I'm just going to revolutionize the barbecue industry. It was purely accident. And so my background, I grew up a farmer in Kansas, and my dad put on a concert at our county fair when I was 7 years old, and I told him right then, this is what I'm going to do for a living. And we can spend as much time or as little time today talking about my history in kind of large scale private and public events. But for the last 20 years, that's what I've done, produced concerts and memorable moments around the world, including a presidential inauguration that I'm very proud of. 4 or 5 years ago, I started handing out barbecue sauce as a gift to my clients, whether you hired me to throw a gig for you, or if you were a celebrity that we hired to work the event. I wanted to give a gift to these people that showed that I put some time in it. And it was an intentional gift. It was a gift, and that I made. And fortunately for all of us, I'm not very good at crochet or anything like that. So
here's your sweater, right?
That's right. I grew up on that little farm in Kansas. I grew up, eating my aunt's barbecue sauce. She had a flavor that was just so good, and like so many of us, it was my aunt, so we loved it. But also, we all have that family member that makes something special that when your friends try, it's like, it's special because you love that person, not because it's great. And so, we always loved it, but you never knew what we had. Anyway, I started handing it out 4 or 5 years ago as gifts. About 15 or 16 months ago, we started getting phone calls, people asking for more of it, and I was flattered and very proud of it. It's my aunt's deal, and so I was very proud of it. But we gave it away, And about 15 or 16 months ago, I went to my wife one day in June and said, I can't do this anymore. Like I literally had like almost 200 bottles to make over the weekend to
Just to give away.
just to give away.
Well,
And
that's going to be on side hustle.
Once they said, we love this. Can I get more? I was just flattered, so I did it. It just kind of started compounding on each other. There's a little restaurant in Texas that was serving it, and it just became too much. And so I figured the polite way to tell people to leave me alone would be to put a price tag on it, something that would make sense. And so, and I really wanted them to leave me alone. I did not want to do this, so I put a great big price tag on it. And lo and behold, our first month we had 600 bottles to make, and it was just like, oh man. And then I was hopeful that they were buying it because they'd been mooching off of me for so long that they'd buy it once and then leave us alone. But then
sure, it's a courtesy.
That's it. The next month we had like 1,800 orders to fill, and we were getting unbelievable feedback. That's the other thing. Once someone starts paying for something, they feel like they can tell you what they think of it, which feedback is a gift. And I treated it that way. And with that now, is an expanded flavor profile where we don't just have the one flavor anymore. We've got 5 or 6 flavors, and we're having fun with it. We have 5 flavors available to buy online. Our other stuff, we do limited drops that are, kind of special for customers only. And so we're just having a lot of fun with it. And I've assembled a team of folks that some of them I'd worked with in previous roles. Others are just kind of had a lot of success in this industry. And man, every Monday morning we have a call, and it's just like we get to make little tweaks every day and then measure those results. And that's something, I worked in retail years ago, and that's something that I didn't get in entertainment that I now get again. And it's just, we made one little tweak to an email campaign this week versus last week, and we saw a little traction, and it's just fun. It's fun to try that stuff. But we build a quality product that customers seem to really like, and we're just having a lot of fun with it. I'm not sure if that answers your question, but that's a little bit about what we're up to at Kinzie Foods. So
we got a lot of ground to cover with all that you have going on, but I did want to dig in. You said it's your aunt's recipe.
That's right.
I know that I've talked to my grandma, years ago when she was alive, and you'd ask her like, hey, how do you make these chocolate chip cookies? And she's like, well, you just put stuff together.
That's right.
Like there's no recipe or anything like that.
That's right.
I don't know if you run into something like that with your aunt where you're like, hey, how do you make this barbecue sauce? She's like, hey, throw some stuff together.
No. So here's the thing. I am, if you follow any of those personality profiles, I'm your classic C profile. I'm full of energy, rare and blowing, going, flying by the seat of my pants, have generally a game plan, a clear vision of where I want to be, but the path to get there is murky. And that also goes for the way I cook in my kitchen and the way that I love cooking. I love preparing meals for my family. There's no recipes. We're just throwing things together. The barbecue sauce, it turns into a chemistry lab because I have to follow a very meticulous recipe. And then on top of that, it's one thing to have the recipe. It's another thing to have the process that you have to go about. And early on, as I was giving this stuff away and wasn't overly concerned about it, I for sure cut corners, and you can tell a difference. And so now that we're taking this real serious, it's I've got pros now that help me make this stuff and whatnot. But it's a very meticulous process. It's food safety. You gotta do it the right way. Not only to preserve the quality of the product, but also to preserve the quality of the experience for the consumer. And so I have no plans to make unfortunate headlines because, I cut corners or anything like that. So which that's also been really helpful or healthy for me because, again, so much of my life has just been like blowing and going like a bull in a china cabinet. But this, I've taken the very methodical approach that I have to take to make a quality product. And I'm trying to apply those same practices in this new endeavor I'm on, and which is a very different approach. And so we're being slow. We're taking our time. We're only interested in quality, hyper focused on the consumer experience, which is something that, I'm just a lot more intentional this time around than I have been with my other businesses.
Fair. Let's talk about the product itself, because making barbecue sauce for your own for that meal, or maybe for a week or something like that. I don't know how much barbecue sauce you make at a time when it was just for you and your buddies kind of thing, versus something that's got to be shelf stable, be in a package of glass bottle, plastic bottle, whatever. You got to figure all that out. You got to figure out how big is the bottle going to be.
That's
We got
right.
to figure out what kind of cap we're going to use, what kind of machine, or where we're getting the stuff actually either made or bottled, distributed. Just take me from the beginning when you went from, hey, this is kind of a hobby to, all right, we got to do this on a bigger scale. Tell me what went through, what kind of decisions did you have to make there?
And that's a fantastic question. There's a bunch of them there. I could have been really easy here. There's a classic barbecue sauce bottle, both plastic and glass. Go to any Walmart, Target, go to the aisle. You're going to see almost every single product is in this type of glass bottle or this type of plastic bottle. Would have been super easy for me to just say, hey, let's just do this. But I'll go back to that first decision. The first decision I ever made for this business, again, was an attempt to try to shut it down. And I charged a huge price tag for it. So in a world where you can go into the Walmart aisle and buy a bottle of barbecue sauce, 20 ounces for $2.25, then you look at mine and I'm over $20 after tax. And so I am 10x what sauce costs at Walmart. And my customers, it would be, a lot of people could say, the product inside the bottle is so good that you can justify that price. But for me, I'm highly sensitive to the customer. That first impression, before they've ever tried it, they should look at it and say, okay, this is special. How that manifests is 20 plus names. Like, what do I even name this company? 20 plus logo concepts, hundreds of logo concepts, truthfully, across the board. How do I name this stuff? Do I, the first bottles, whenever I was just shipping it out of my kitchen for free, my daughter at the time was 7 years old, designed all of our logos. And she designed, we'd go to Home Depot and just print it off on a little sticker and put it on there. And it very much looked like a 4-H project. But, there were cutesy little names and a cutesy little design by a 7-year-old. And the whole thing's still a family affair. But, we had to be really intentional about that. Like, what is our brand positioning going to be? Are we going to have this little cutesy, look at us, we're a family operation sort of model? Or are we going to have this, particularly like in the world of hot sauce, you have all these crazy labels and crazy names. Are we going to lean in and be a part of that? Or are we just going to forge our own path? There's a phenomenal case study through Harvard called the Blue Ocean Strategy. And they look at companies like Cirque du Soleil. They look at Southwest Airlines. They look at a lot of these really big, successful companies and how they have really they offer a product that's incredibly similar or the exact same as a lot of their competitions, but they just go about it completely different. That's the approach we decided to take here. We're going to have an ultra premium package. We're going to have an ultra sophisticated naming process. We're going to have a premium label, premium bottle, premium experience. And even from there, how we've had to iterate, I went for months and I'd go over to a friend's house and I'd just open up the refrigerator door and I'd look at all the condiments on there. And I'm looking at crusty stuff around the lid and just chunks of ketchup bottles 3/4 of the way empty. And there's just chunks of stuff on the side of the bottle. And, or do they have a non-transparent bottle so you can't see that kind of dirty experience on the inside of it? And we were just hyper-focused on how do we solve all of that? So from the very last drop, that customer has an ultra premium experience. And so we've gone in, although I do think there'll be another version of this within the next year. But right now we've got this ultra premium bottle. It is plastic, but it's got a twist top, which is kind of unheard of in barbecue sauce. I've manipulated the recipes so that we get the same bold flavors, but it's a very consistent pouring process with that suction cup of a twist cap. So, once you've applied what you need to, what's left behind is just a really clean experience in your refrigerator. So from the first time you use it till the very end, you don't get any of the disgusting stuff that typically happens. The other thing we had to do was you look at the barbecue sauce market, and it is rapidly growing, and really thanks to the some of the stuff that happened during COVID that created so many at-home chefs. There are markets in this country, gigantic markets in this country, that have very little presence of barbecue. And so it'd be one thing to build it and try to keep it in that same mold, where you apply it to meats that you're smoking, so ribs, pulled pork, brisket, whatever it might be. But that's not what our customers were telling us. Our customers were telling us, we put this on our scrambled eggs in the morning. We put this on our tacos. We put this on our burgers. And so we've been really, really intentional to position ourselves that this is kind of an everyday, every meal, everything kind of sauce. And we've got a unique flavor profile across our 5 predominant flavors that it doesn't matter what the meal is. Chances are we've got a nice little complement to it. And so we recognize that our price point is not going to be for everyone, but if you're that person that goes ahead and buys the sea salt on the cracked pepper container, or you're that at-home chef that just likes to go a little bit further to make sure that your meal is over the top, then we've got multiple products for you. And that's really the customer base that we're going after. And we're increasing the application use, which differentiates us from the rest of the market. And so there's a few of the decisions, but it's been really insane for me on just how intentional every single step of the way. My goodness, our website, again, Shopify and some of these profiles make it so easy to throw something up there. And if we wanted to just kind of fit in, I could have had a site live in a couple hours, just kind of fumbling my way through as an amateur on Shopify. But I brought in some folks that have had a lot of success there, and it's a risk. It's a more expensive way to go, but we're 5 months in, and still 2 people working all day, every day to make little tweaks to it. We're just hyper focused that every single turn, the customer's having a great experience. They're enjoying the process. They buy the product in a very efficient way. It's delivered in a beautiful package, not, very different from what you would normally get when you buy online. And then you open it up, you should be super impressed with the bottle once you look at it. And then once you try it, you're just going to be blown away. And so to have that experience, and I'm not pretending like we're pros at any of that yet, but to have that experience, that is a hard, expensive way to go. But for us, it's the way we're going to choose to go. And for us, we just made the decision that we're going to go about it slower instead of ramping up super fast. There's some disadvantages to doing it the way that we're doing it. And one of it is you can't move as fast as other companies. And we've made the conscious decision that we're okay with that.
Fair, totally fair. It's so interesting. You talk about the packaging and going through it to get the consistency, I suppose the viscosity of the sauce to a point that it can be applied where your customers are applying it. And the packaging, I imagine when they receive it in the mail, that there's I don't know if ceremony is the right word, but it reminds me of some things where you get where they're just like, some kid threw this in the box, didn't give a care. I can remember I bought a power steering pump recently. That's a pretty heavy object. Yep. That was in a box about 5 times the size of it with no packing material in it.
Oh my goodness.
Like, I feel like there's not a whole lot of care here because I got to go through the process of changing this thing, which I hope it works. It's tough.
That's right.
But where other products, it's almost like we got to light candles to open this thing. This is amazing.
I've been very pleased with the number of people that will send us an email or find us online somehow, and they have taken a picture of just the package. They haven't even opened it yet. They've taken a picture of the package in excitement and anticipation that it's arrived. And it's not overly complicated what we're doing, but I equate it, we're not on this level by any means, but I equate it to like when you buy that new Apple product, and it's one thing, to open it, pull the plastic off, and phone reveal itself, but the box opens super slow, and you got this little piece of tape there, but it's got this little arrow that shows you exactly how to pull it, so it just cuts off clean, and you're not having to find a pocket knife or anything like that. We're nowhere near that level, but our site is on that, and that's where we're headed. And so, and I know I'm doing it right, at least at this stage of the game, when customers are sending pictures of just the package saying we're real excited. So
Well, I think that speaks volumes because it shows that you're aware of things that a lot of people either they think, hey, that's not important, or it's just not even on their radar, or they're not willing to take the time to design it or pay for it.
That's right.
It's one of those things where I'm like, something on that level. I mean, so much stuff seems to be disposable, throwaway. It's obvious, or it seems to be that people didn't care. Like you're
That's right.
spending money with them, regardless if you're spending $2 or $3 or $20, you're still spending money with them. And it would be nice to know that the people you're spending money with care on some level that they
That's
have
right.
you as a client.
That's right.
And I'm
That's
like,
right.
what really is the cost difference between giving them just something thrown in a box versus something that's almost ceremonial? Is it really that significant?
Well, I'll tell you one thing that I take pretty serious. I said earlier I used to work in retail. When I left that retail job, the CEO of the company made a comment to me, and he just said, you're starting something new. I'm not going to tell you how to spend your money, but like you're going to have to go buy laptops and cell phones and things like that for your employees. And he said, um, the company I'm leading today, when that company started, we made the conscious decision we're buying the cheapest laptops you can buy, we're buying the cheapest cell phones you can buy, we're buying all of that stuff. And he said, now we're huge. And they were a $4.5 billion company at the time that I left. But he said, now for us to make the decision that we actually should probably get Macs for all of our employees and we should actually get iPhones for all of our employees, it is a painful, highly expensive, transformational way of thinking to make that switch. And he said, I'm not going to tell you how to run your business or how to spend your money, but if you think there's a chance that one day your employees are going to need MacBook Pros, start there because it is going to be incredibly difficult. It is so much easier to save money or cut costs than it is to say, darn it, for us to get the results we need, we got to spend a lot more money. And it is way easier to go one way than it is the other. And so I took that serious with the entertainment company, and I'm taking it serious here where I would rather overspend, to your point, all these products I'm buying to give my customer the experience of a direct consumer experience. I got to buy these things anyway. So I'm just spending a little bit more to get quality, spending a little bit more time to package it the right way. I'm spending a little bit. It's just little things here and there that I am taking it further and I am spending a little bit more than what it could be done for. But I'd rather look up in a few years and say, you know what, we can make these cuts and have the same customer experience than it would be to say we really need to layer in all of this stuff and on a much bigger scale. That's just a way more painful way to go. And so it again may not be the smart way to do it. We'll know in 5, 6, 7 years whether it was the right decision, but for now the thrill of the journey and the reaction we're getting from customers is kind of all the evidence I need that let's take the time, let's spend a little bit more and give them an experience they deserve versus, cheap bottle, cheap package, cheap packaging, delivered slowly, and arrives in something that's not going to keep.
Yeah,
It's not what we're doing.
I get what you're saying there. It's funny. It reminds me of some of the packages my wife gets from Amazon because
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why she orders so much, but she does. Sometimes I feel like we're keeping them afloat. I know we're
You,
not.
you and I collectively might be. So,
But she like by the front door, and this is my little social experiment that because I'm somewhat of a jerk that way. Like packages left by the front door, I bring it in, set it by the front door, but inside the house. And sometimes that package will go a week before it's even touched or opened.
mm-hmm.
And I'm like, that means that she bought this thing with the anticipation of whatever it is, right? But it's obviously not life threatening. And whatever it is probably isn't even that important.
That's right.
And I'm like, I
In the
feel
moment,
like if there was more of a something that would get people excited, like, hey, Santa Claus is here, man. We gotta open this up. Instead, he's just like, oh, it's another brown package.
that's right. Well, so what I would tell you, and this is something so first of all, you and my experience is very similar. But what that also tells me is that she's doing business with a company that has been highly effective at building the excitement and the thrill of the purchase
Correct.
on something that they've been really good at that. They haven't got it right on the other end. And that may not matter, that may not matter at all, because
they got your money, man.
They got your money. And you know what? You're going to go outside today and there's going to be a few more packages at your front door. That volume doesn't change. And so for us, we are taking that side of it serious, but we also want people to have that other experience. We think that other experience, because we sell one product in a very, very intentional way, we need them to be, Christmas morning, whenever that thing shows up, and then excited that they can redo this in 45 days when they're running low and it's time to refill. So
yeah, it's interesting because I'm thinking when somebody gives me a gift, I want to say that I don't care how it's wrapped. But if you think if someone gave you a gift and it was in just an old grocery bag versus a gift that's in either a nice bag or wrapped, and you knew that when you opened it, confetti was going to pop out, those are two different experiences.
that's right.
Even if
That's
inside is a bag of money, you're still like, oh, you wrapped it up here. That's so nice, right?
That's right. That's
So
right.
it's so interesting because I'm like, it doesn't matter. But then you're like, it kind of does. I
That's
don't
right.
want it to, but it does.
And within your world and within your hobbies and within the things that really bring you joy, I bet that the way the products involved in that joy and the way you interact with those, that's a different experience for you than maybe when the deodorant shows up or the toothpaste shows up, and there's a different urgency, there's a different anticipation, there's a different level of excitement. And for all of us, that's different. And for us, we're just hyper focused that we believe that there's enough foodies in this world that are in the country that really enjoy the process of making a great meal, and we're providing a necessary tool that allows them, no matter how the meal turns out, that allows them to just know confidently that their guests or themselves are going to enjoy it. And so we're hopeful that segment of people gets a little more excited when our package shows up than maybe when the deodorant shows up.
Fair. A lot of worlds were conquered or fought, or people were willing to risk falling off the edge of the earth to make their food a little spicier.
That's right.
So I feel like you're in the right world right there.
That's right.
Tell me a story about how did you decide on the volume? The given bottle, you see some bottles of whatever, whether it's ketchup, mustard, barbecue sauce, whatever, beer. I mean, I suppose beer is pretty standard, but you got some that are like 6.25 ounces or 9.87 ounces.
That's right.
Where are they coming up with these numbers, or are they just like, that's the one? Is it based on dollar and then work backwards? Or is it machine and work backwards? Or where are they figuring that out?
Yeah. So for most of them, that's exactly what it is. It is the machine that they're producing the product in and how that product gets poured into the vessel. And then it's driven by cost. And, when you're selling a product at Walmart for $2.25, you've got to cut a lot of corners to eke out even just a little bit of margin per unit. And so the decision and the vessel and all of that is derived from that experience. We're going direct to consumer. I'm not worried about taking retail hits and margin hits from having distributors and bookers and retail shelves involved. And so for me, everything was driven. It was less about the ounces and it was more about what is the right vessel. And one of these days I'll show you, but right over here off to the side, there's probably 250 bottles on my counter that range everywhere from half an ounce to 22 ounces. And for me, it wasn't about how much product is inside of that bottle. It is, what is the bottle that works best with my product? So it has a really nice pour experience that just every step of the way, the customer has an enjoyable experience. Our flavors are super bold. And so unlike a lot of sauces where you just, I'm picturing my daughters and the amount of ketchup that goes onto a plate to coat the chicken nugget to get it where it needs to be. You just don't have to have that much with me. Our flavors are super bold. And so regardless of the ounces, our product lasts longer in your kitchen or in your refrigerator than something else where you need a lot of it to get you where you need to be. And so for me, it was, what is the right vessel that gives you the right amount of control so you can control how much you think about how many times you tip that bottle over and you beat the tar out of it.
Right.
And then it finally comes out. It's just way too much, and you've just coated it. So for me, it was all about the experience for the customer. And once I found the vessel that gave that customer the experience, then it was just, what is it? And ironically, the bottle itself is a 12-ounce bottle, but the weight of my product is much heavier than water weight. And so it's the vessel itself is a 12-ounce vessel that serves 14 ounces of product. And again, that I wasn't trying to have a 14-ounce product. I wasn't going for any of that. I was going for the experience. And the ounces will change when I switch to glass. Again, not because I've got this magic number in mind, but I have finally selected a glass bottle that frankly we're having custom made for us and whatnot. But for us, it wasn't the amount that was inside of the bottle as much as, do they have a world-class experience when they're interacting with this thing? And I feel like we got there. And so the ounces will change when we go to glass, but it's only because I want the customer to have the best possible experience interacting with the product. And that's what we've done here. So,
You raise an interesting point, because I'm picturing this as you say that 14 ounces of product in 12-ounce bottle. Like, you got to consider you got a 5-year-old kid that's still got to lift it, right? It can't be some 5-gallon jug or something.
that's right.
You got to think all the different hand sizes and how does it fit on the table? How does it fit in the fridge? Man, there's so many variables here. That is
How it fits on a shelf, how it
Mm.
fits inside of the fridge. You're exactly right. Like, and frankly, there was a glass bottle that we loved. And then I went to put it in my fridge. I was like, I've got to adjust the shelves in here for this thing to fit. We can't do that. And so, and I mean, we were so confident that that was the bottle that we were going to use. And then all of a sudden I'm like, oh boy, this isn't going to work. Nobody gets a refrigerator. So few people get a refrigerator and say, oh, I'm going to adjust the shelf heights here. The way it's delivered 99 times out of 100 is just how and we figured out that this bottle was going to require everyone to physically adjust the shelves in the refrigerator. And that's
Never
a
happened.
step I'm unwilling to make the customer go through. And so it's, there's a lot into it, the width of the bottle. So today, we are direct to consumer. One day we will be on shelves though. And it's like, you want to have a desirable positioning on the shelf to where they can fit us in a lot easier format than they could other products. So all of those things, again, asked me 15 months ago, I would have been like, who cares? And now it's just been a lot of fun, just how methodical we've had to be. And like I said, we're learning every step of the way. We're making our fair share of mistakes, and but we've approached it knowing that we're going to mess a lot of stuff up, and but we're committed to fixing it and adjusting it, and we're looking forward to the mistakes and anticipating them so that we can get that mistake behind us and know that, all right, at least this part of the journey is solved for at least this period of time. So and that's different for me, in the live event world. No event ever goes off the way that you think it's going to go off, but it has to go off. If it doesn't go off, you've got a world of problems. And so there's very little room for error there. And every error is a catastrophe. And that's just not the experience here, which is making this a lot of fun, where we've got the margin to make some mistakes and built in the bandwidth when those mistakes happen to, be able to take care of the people that might be on the negative end of those mistakes. So we're having fun with it.
That's fair. It's the definition of entrepreneurship, right? Make enough money that you can afford the mistakes you make.
That's right.
Let's
and
shift
this
gears.
early stage, it's not even about the money as much as the time or the experience.
Fair.
We put that stuff into place. We had, we've now fortunately been shipping thousands of bottles of this stuff. And but I had our very first one a couple weeks ago where the customer sent me the picture and the bottle had exploded and on delivery. And it was just like, but I was very proud that within an hour she already had her new shipping label in hand, and the tracking number, and the replacement stuff was on the way. And so it's even just like, it's even factoring in that margin of time that we can be flexible like that. and because of the way we control a lot of the experience, we're not having to jump through 15 different hoops to get a replacement order out there. We jump through a couple different hoops in a very efficient way with the fewest number of people possible, and have a happy and satisfied customer, within a matter of a short period of time. And that's the experience we're looking for.
That's awesome. Tell me a story about when you shifted just cooking the stuff. Or do you cook barbecue sauce or do you mix it?
You
I don't
cook
even
it.
know. I have
Yeah.
no idea how you make barbecue sauce.
You do both of those things, but it is a cooked product that, in order to get the flavor profiles the way that you need them, you got to cook all the ingredients in a certain order, to a certain temperature, in order to achieve the profiles that you're looking for. And so, I was very fortunate. My aunt had been making this stuff for 40 or 50 years, and she walked me through it. It wasn't a complicated thing, but she walked me through, take these steps, take them serious, and do it the right way. And you can have fun in these areas, but you can't have fun in these areas. And it was teaching me where I could take the liberty to make adjustments that ultimately allowed me to thrive with these new flavors. And truthfully, the exact family recipe is reserved for the family. What goes out to market is a variation of that is just outstanding. People love it. But with how this came about, it was very important to me to keep a certain element for the way it was always intended to be. And so I've loved honoring her in that way. Her name is Kinzie. And so, even though my last name's Kinzie, the company is named after my aunt to honor her. And she's just a woman I'm proud to be a relative of. And she's had some great times in her life. She's had some hard times in her life. And I can never, even from the littlest kid, I can never remember a time where she didn't just have the biggest smile on her face. And so, and she's going to get rewarded in all of this. If there's a meaningful exit down the road somewhere, I look forward to changing her life. And so, but yeah, it's kind of went in a few different directions there. But yeah, it is you cook it. It's a very methodical and intentional process to get the result that we've got, and it's something I enjoy. I do. I'm very happy that we have people that make it for us now.
Okay, I was going to ask that because I wonder, like, how do you go from kitchen to cauldron?
Mm-hmm.
Gotta get this,
Yeah,
you gotta make a
there's this
few
thing called.
bottles, no big thing. When you gotta make hundreds, now we're talking some industrial type equipment.
That's exactly right. And there's elements of the process that I still manage in-house. The shipping component of it, I talked earlier about how we were able to take care of that customer so fast. Part of it is because I keep a healthy amount of inventory here. So at a moment's notice, if somebody's caught up, I'm able to ship it and get it out very efficiently, or my wife or whatever. And so but yeah, it was a very happy day in our household when we made the decision to outsource the cooking. There's cottage laws, which is something was a term I wasn't even familiar with, in all of these states. And, thankfully in the state that I live in, there's a lot of liberty to create this stuff and build a little business. And it's a very pro-business, pro-small business state. And so we really enjoyed the benefits of that for a while. But then it just, it came to a point where I had to ask myself, am I going to be out there representing the brand, or I'm going to be behind closed doors producing the brand? And so it's best for everyone that we let the pros make it. And I'm focused on just talking about it and introducing it to folks.
Yeah, I imagine just consistency of the product, and I imagine just the capital expense of the equipment that you would need, the space, the time. There comes a point where you're just like, what is my goal here?
That's right. And these deals right now is a virtually brand new business in the overall world of this industry. I'm so small and just insignificant that these manufacturers, the deals are definitely in their favor now. But I'm looking forward to growing this to a point where I'll have options and we'll be able to have more favorable terms. And you're right, to have the USDA approved space or an FDA approved space with all that equipment would be very expensive. it's also very expensive to say, hey, I need you to produce 500 gallons of this, and I got to pay for it up front before it gets produced. And
Oh,
so,
okay,
it's
fair.
that's a huge amount of money out of pocket just like that. But it is nice that a couple weeks later, it just shows up and it's ready to go and ready
You
to.
didn't have to wait for the health inspector to come on
That's
by
right.
or find
That's
out that your employee didn't show up or
that's
learn
right.
that your gas burner's dirty so it's not doing its thing or pay for the hood,
That's exactly right.
suck all the fumes out or have your wife saying, "You're cooking barbecue sauce again."
That's right. Well, some of our flavors are pretty spicy. Let me rephrase that. Some of our flavors have a spice element to it, and I use what are traditionally really hot peppers, but I cook a lot of the heat out of it. That cooking a lot of the heat out of it means a lot of sneezing and a lot of tears with the fumes and stuff roaming around. And so, but I still tweak and invent new flavors down here. So I'm constantly innovating new stuff, and I'm still the one behind all of that. So even though we've outsourced a lot of that, they still get their healthy dose of me experimenting with peppers and different things like that to see if I can come up with something that we're proud of.
I get that. That's all part of the game. That's all
That's
part of the
right.
game.
That's right.
Let's shift gears into your event business. Tell us about that. It looks like you had a lot of cool stuff going on. Presidential inauguration back in 2017. You got
Yes,
some
sir.
awesome, incredible bands. Tell us that story.
Yeah. So that when I mentioned it earlier, I told my dad when I was 7 years old I was going to put on concerts for a living, and I
So,
had
was your dad playing or was he
nope,
sound guy
no.
or
So
what was he
we
doing?
grew up in a really really small town in Kansas, and I was very involved with 4-H and FFA, and um, when I was very young, my dad drew the short straw of the adults from our 4-H chapter, and one summer he was in charge of the entertainment component. My dad's an entrepreneur, and he's a barber, and had a little bit of a local and regional political profession for a little while, but yeah, and just a super great guy and super involved in his community. So I know he had a lot of fun with it, but it's not what he does. And so, and growing up in a town of just a few hundred people, then watching my dad produce this show, and I was looking out from the stage, and I just never seen so many people in a room or in one space ever before as a rodeo arena. But there were a few hundred people there. I'd never seen that many people in one spot before, and I was just like amazed that something my dad made caused all these people to want to be there at that one time, and I just saw a lot of joy that night, and so I committed to doing it. I did my first show when I was 18 years old. There was a kind of a profound reason for doing it. A friend of mine was terminally ill. And we kind of figured out how much money his family needed to help him achieve a few things before the illness finally got him. And what was interesting was we set a goal to raise $70,000 for him, and we used a concert to do it. $70,000 is a lot of money. And we used a concert to do it. I was 18 years old, and we went out and we did it. And what's interesting is, we were dead set for the entire planning process. We were going to raise $70,000. We raised $71,000. And I was driving home that night, and I just thought to myself, what if I would have said we need to raise $250,000? I feel very
Right?
firmly that we would have raised it. Like, we set our mind to do something, and I made a commitment to myself that night on two things. Number one, I verified that I absolutely did want to put on concerts for a living. But number two, I also told myself I'd never let myself or anybody else limit how high I could go. And man, the dreaming started right then. Artists that I had no business ever doing business with, milestones in society, that you look at things like a Super Bowl halftime show, or an opening ceremonies to an Olympics, or a presidential swearing in ceremony, and I kind of weighed all of the options and decided way early that one day I'm going to produce a presidential inauguration, and that was just more interesting to me than those other two options I threw out there. And it's amazing when with anything in life, when you set your mind to something, and you're committed to it, it's incredible how it could happen. I didn't care what candidate I produced an inauguration for. I just wanted to do it, and I got to do it, and it was really really a special experience. And so, but I look back now on a career that started out as a dream when I was 7. I'm 41 years old now. Collectively, we've done over 5,000 events in countless countries around the world. I've worked with some of the most predominant entertainers, predominant families and companies. The world I live in events is predominantly private events, which is I grew up in a poor farming community in Kansas, a lot of people that I love and a lot of love and joy, but not a lot of money. And so now I look at some of these things that I've thrown over the years that we're spending more money an hour than most people will see in their entire life. And it's just been a really kind of pinch me moment over and over again. And I'm just, I'm proud of what we built and what we've done. You look back now, we've done over $500 million in private events, and it's been a remarkable journey throughout the whole way.
That is cool. I can remember, I'm trying to think last concert that I was at. It's been a while. It may, I don't know if it was Garth Brooks in St. Louis or, I get as far as large venue. And I remember looking around where the concert starts at whatever. Well, ticket says 7, but it's really like 9:30 or whatever.
Yeah.
And so you're just killing time looking around the building. And I remember looking at that soundboard, huge, and the wires coming in and out of that thing, and the guys that they have moving in and out of the tables looking at all that stuff. This is before the concerts even started.
That's
You're
right.
looking at the guys that are dressed all in black that are moving stuff around, throwing guitars around. You see the speakers, and I'm trying to think what that venue was normally. If it was a basketball stadium, whatever it was, doesn't matter. It's not normally a concert venue.
Yeah.
And I thought, what did it take to put this together? And how
That's right.
far out did they have to schedule it? How did they find the people, the crew, figure out the speakers, the wires, all that jazz, and then make sure it doesn't go off without a hitch,
That's right.
regardless of how big that crowd is? It is insane, insane how many decisions have to have been made correctly, and for people to do what they're paid to do or do what they said they were going to do. It's impressive.
It's I've been very fortunate. I've got to work with Garth a lot, and I've worked with a lot of artists, and for me, there's a whole lot of steps that are just really exhilarating for me. But to this day, logged over 5,000 of these things in my career. To this day, for me, the moment where it's all worth it is, I'll back into it. You get the gig, and then the planning starts. You assemble the team, all of those things, the wire, but it's all the food and beverage, it's all the hotels, all the air flights, ground transportation, security, staffing, ticket takers, ticketing system, ticketing decision. What are you going to charge for this stuff? How are you back into it? It's all thousands and thousands and thousands of decisions that have to be made to get to a point where ultimately I'm standing on the side of a stage and I'm looking around to, sometimes it's hundreds of people because it's a really intimate event. Sometimes it's thousands of people, but regardless, I'm looking around that all of these people could have been anywhere tonight. But they chose to be right here because of all of those thousands of decisions we made to give them a reason. People who have hard jobs or hard lives, everyone's going through something. And I was the thing that they circled on their calendar that got them through that week. That, it didn't matter how hard it was, because on Saturday or on Friday, this thing's happening. And now they're there. And then it's that exact moment where I'm standing side stage. I look at all these people that are there, and I can see the artists walking up, and they're getting closer and closer. And the stage lights dim, the whole stadium or room erupts in cheers. And then the artist steps up to the microphone in one way or another, greets the crowd, and you can hear them, because all of those wires and all of those decisions and all of those steps that it took to get the artists there, to give them what they need so that they can do their thing, and it works. That moment where they greet the crowd and the crowd goes nuts. I mean, I got hair on my arm standing up right now just thinking about it. There's so many things in life that are interesting to you, but you do it enough and kind of the interesting part wears off. I'm several thousand of these things in, and just talking about it makes the hair on my arm stand up. I'm in the right industry,
I
and
get
I love what I
that.
do.
I get
So
that.
it's been, but it's also an interesting industry because, with what I do, which is predominantly in the private world. So it's a very cutthroat deal to do these public ones. And I've done a few public ones, but it's very, very cutthroat, very tough to break into that. A lot of big companies that make it tough to break into it. But the private world, I've got a ton of opportunity there. But it doesn't matter what the name of my company is. My clients are hiring me. They want me to be the one that's making those thousands of decisions, because they trust that when I'm involved, it's going to go the right way. And so what that ultimately means for a business is it doesn't matter how successful you are. You have a service-based business that's worth nothing. I am the common denominator. And if for whatever reason I convince somebody to pay me a bunch of money for my entertainment company, it's not like these billionaires that I work for are going to say, oh, well, I guess I have to use this other person now to plan my party. They're going to be like, no, I'm calling Walter. It doesn't matter what's on the business card. They want me. And so that's been a really, really motivating and driving force behind Kinzie Foods is now I have an opportunity to build something that is much bigger than me and much, much bigger than what we're building a brand and we're building a product that people are loving. And it will have inherent value. And so in one of these days, I'll get to, hopefully, God willing, I'll get to experience the joy of an exit that a lot of business leaders enjoy, and but something that, frankly, the company I've loved building over the last 20 years is just not going to do something like that. So it'll be a different conclusion, God willing, than what I could have over here that'll bring me equal joy to this other stuff. So I have made some adjustments to the entertainment business. I am taking on way less projects now. I've kind of refined what I am willing to do and what I'm not willing to do. In the last few days, I've asked it's a very, very small group of people in this world that have ever produced a presidential inauguration. And so when these things come around, my phone tends to ring, and as it has over the last few days. But respectfully, doing two of these things does nothing for your resume. Doing one of them does a lot for your resume. Doing two of them does nothing for your resume. So if I was younger or didn't have a family, maybe I'd consider it. But what's best for me and my family right now is I stay focused on Kinzie Foods, do a few of these events, and build a brighter future, and frankly, be home for dinner most nights. So which I would not be able to do if I was in DC for the next 90 days planning something.
So tell me about the inauguration thing, and this is pure curiosity.
Sure.
Because I can't say that I've ever watched one, so I don't even know. Is this an intimate thing where you got a few hundred people there, or is this half
No,
the country's there kind of thing? I have no idea.
no, we had for the one in 2017. I don't think we, despite what some of the headlines might say in either direction, we had a whole lot more people there than what the headlines claim. I don't think we broke any records, but we had 1 million people in the audience probably.
1 million.
And yeah, directly
This has
in
got to
front
be
of folks.
outdoors then.
Yeah, it's held on the National Mall on the steps of the Capitol. We built a big
Oh, okay.
platform. The president is out on this platform that's 4 or 5 stories tall. You don't really get that perspective on TV, but it's 4 or 5 stories tall. There's a hierarchy of the guests and where they're at, and then ultimately you have the National Mall where all the spectators watch it from. And there's varying levels of production with speakers and LED walls and things like that. But then you also have all the other ceremonial stuff. So you have the first dance, you have all the balls and different things like that happen throughout the night. And someone wisely told me one time, you're the sum total of all the decisions you've ever made in your life. And I when I heard that, it was just such a profound statement for me. And it could be a statement that, if taken too literally, could be very stressful. Like you don't want to overanalyze these sorts of things. But it really, for the journey I went on when I heard that, was I thought about, what are the things that happened that ultimately led to, what are the decisions I made that led to this particular thing happening in my life? And I went on that journey one time when I think about this inauguration that I planned in 2017. How did a farm boy from a little town of a few hundred people that was raised scooping manure and putting bale and hay. How did I land on this stage where I'm literally giving the cue for the transition of power to happen? And one president leaves office as another president goes. And I was directing that moment in history. And I went back and I thought about those decisions. And what I was able to come up with was I got the call because I met someone at a house in East Texas. I met that person at that house in East Texas because I worked at a convention much earlier and made a friend, and that friend introduced me to that person. I worked that convention because I made the decision in high school that I was going to run to be a state FFA officer, and I ran and I didn't get it. And because I didn't get it and I still wanted to be involved in FFA, I volunteered to go work at the national convention, and making that decision to run for office, lose, and then still decide to be involved led me to working this convention where I met this person. I got to the point where I decided to run for state office because I decided to run for district office as a junior in high school, and I had a really good experience. And I got to that point because I made a decision when I was a sophomore that I was going to run for a chapter office, and I had a really good experience. And I got to that point because when I was a freshman in high school, I watched some kids that were chapter officers, and I thought, man, I'm going to do that one day. I got there because when I was in the 7th grade, my older sister was an officer in this club, and I went to a banquet that she was being honored at, and she got an award, and I was just so impressed with what my sister did. And then I made the decision that night I was going to be involved in that same club. And earlier that day, I made the decision I was going to go to a banquet. And a decision I made in 7th grade to go to a banquet led me to fall in love with an organization that I decided to be a leader in, that I decided to be a leader in. I failed at being a leader. So then I just got a volunteer gig that introduced me to someone, that introduced me to someone else, that introduced me to the president-elect of the United States of America. And I was standing there on a stage producing one of the greatest moments in history. And that's not a political statement. That's just like, at the time,
it's a big deal. President of the
58
US.
times a person was sworn in to be the president of the United States. And I was calling the shots for one of those 58 times. And all because when I was in the 7th grade, I decided, I'm not going to watch TV today. I'm going to go do this thing for my sister. Could have very easily just stayed home and rode a 4-wheeler on the farm or watched TV or whatever, and I would have missed all of that. And I also, I'm a God-fearing man, and our Christian faith is very important to us and our family. And I think God empowers us to make those decisions in our life, and He presents those opportunities. And sometimes He gives us really big nudges, and sometimes He doesn't. But it's what we do with those nudges that ultimately leads. And like I said, you can put a lot of pressure on yourself on every single decision that you make. But that was a 25-year journey from one little decision I made in 7th grade that led to this. And so I've had a lot of fun tracing back other decisions that's led to other moments in my life that I'm just so grateful for.
That is, man, that's a cool story. Talk about the snowball effect, huh?
That's right.
That is cool. And it's not all in who you know, it's who knows you. So
That's
just
right.
think, and interesting, even if you point out what you perceived as lack of success with you not winning FFA, imagine if you did win. Maybe you wouldn't be doing that.
Yeah, I mean, there's a great Chinese prophecy where it talks about all these different things. We're like, oh, thank goodness! Like now the story goes something along the lines of like the kid gets bucked off a horse, and now he can't be enlisted into the army, so he doesn't go to war. And they just kind of go along. Thank God that happened. And the farmer always would come back and say, well, we'll see. And you just never know. And I've been in business long enough. I've been at this thing called life long enough that I don't have any control. All I can do is make the best decision in that moment that I think is going to lead me in the right direction in that moment. But you don't know how things are going to end up. And if I've learned anything, it's the great times are not going to last. And the really bad times are also not going to last. And what's on the other end of it is a journey that you don't know how it's going to go, but it's going to be all right. And nothing is forever, and that's okay. And I've had some really, really dark times in my career that it's just impossible to dream about what that mountain could look like on the other side. It's impossible to be able to conceptualize, can I even get there? And you think about COVID was hard for the entire world. There's not a human being I've met that was like, oh, that was a breeze, that was easy.
Let's do that again.
Let's do that again. That never had that conversation. And for me, though, there were tons of blessings within COVID, and some of those blessings came by way of the complete decimation of my live events business. And
I imagine that took a hit.
It was, I didn't lose anybody close to me to COVID. A lot of people I know got it. Certainly, 1 degree, 2 degree, 3 degree separation between me and some folks that did not make it. But I didn't have to deal with any of that. But I did deal with between live events that we had booked, live events contracts that we had with customers, or events that we were actively running. I had 28 bands loading into South by Southwest the day the city pulled the permit on South by Southwest. Every one of those bands had been paid. Every one of those little wires that you talked about with your experience had been paid for, and it was just gone. And, collectively, we had $40 million in either live events that we were producing, live events that we had in the works, or contracts that we had secured that dissolved in 4 days. And I did not have $40 million to.
No, not just whipping your wallet out and being like, was that 40? Okay.
It was a catastrophic time. And we had a very interesting rebound that was not profitable, but it was highly successful in the amount of joy it brought the world. We put early on, it was 300 or so venues together in the United States and Canada, and we started doing drive-in concerts. So I put Garth Brooks, and he did a show to ultimately 400,000 people that was able to stay in quarantine in their cars but go to a concert within 90 days of COVID hitting, and the whole world still shut down. We did one with Metallica, we did one with Bon Jovi, and we did a bunch of these with a bunch of different artists. And ultimately, the result was 1.7 million people got to stay in quarantine at a time when the entire country, the entire world was still shut down. They got to leave their house and go do something in a social way that was unique and different. And we didn't make any money doing it, but it was a very proud moment for me to provide at least an ounce of hope and healing to a nation, multiple nations, during a pretty dark time. And the team just did a remarkable job. And so, we've had a lot of those interesting moments that help us get over that mountain one way or another. But we had to ultimately, we'd ran the company completely debt free since day one, and we had to take on a bunch of debt when all this happened. And frankly, we're still working through the ramifications of that. And it's not been fun at all, but I still get to watch that artist walk up to the microphone and the crowd to go nuts. And that makes climbing these mountains worth it to me.
Fair. Totally fair. Walter, we don't have a ton of time left, but I do want to ask you a few more questions about the event thing. You do all this work, you get all this stuff going, and especially with some of the heavy metal band, or probably any band really, you hear stories about, well, I guess I've even seen concerts where they showed up drunk, mm-hmm. or stoned or something like that. And you're like, man, I gave all this money to see this guy barely walk. What's going on here? How do you deal with that? Because you still got to have the show go on.
Yeah.
Are there times when people just won't get out of their dressing room or whatever?
Yeah. I've been very fortunate that we've had very few cancellations over the years. They do happen, and life happens. A lot of times it has nothing to do with the artist, overindulging or anything like that. We had a situation a few years ago where the lead singer of a band's mom passed away that morning. We had that show booked for a year. There's no way to predict that sort of stuff. And so things just happen and you deal with them in the moment. Now, that said, you hear these horror stories about the way bands act and the way they carry themselves. Let me put it to you this way. if you commit to doing a job for someone and you show up and they don't have any of the stuff arranged that they said they'd have arranged for you, and it could be a simple office job, and you get there and you're expecting a laptop and you're expecting, paper and pencils and pens and, maybe a cold call list or something like that. You show up and that stuff's not there. You've been promised it. Now you're showing up to do a job and you don't have the tools to do it. How are you going to perform and how are you going to act in that moment? And so we taken very seriously over communicating with our bands every step of the way on what's going to be there for them, and making sure they have what they need. So many of those moments are a direct result of not an artist overindulging, but rather an artist showing up, and the people that were in my position just didn't do what they said they were going to do. And they've got a reputation on the line. Like, it's, if a band has a bad night, no one's thinking, oh my goodness, Walter Kinzie, that producer, he must have screwed something up. I don't deal with any of that. Band has a bad night, they're the ones that have to deal with the ramifications online, on social media, all of that stuff. And so we take very serious that let's do everything we can to make sure that when that artist shows up, everything is exactly the way it's supposed to be, not just for the artist, but for every member of their team. They have the tools they need to do a good job, and that there's no one's going to be on fire trying to figure something out. Everyone's just going to be super satisfied that everything is the way it is, and we can just have a nice, relaxing evening. That approach has been wildly successful for us. And in that situation, it is so rare that something happens. We had a situation one time. It was a 40th birthday party, which so many of our things are birthday parties for kind of these ultra high net worth families. But it was a 40th birthday party, and it was down in Georgia, and family had 130, 150 guests. And you think about that, like, these people live a high profile lifestyle, but an event like this, they're putting their guard down in a very vulnerable position to give their fans or their friends and coworkers an ultra premium experience that kind of fits who they are. Like, I have to get into the mind of my clients to really understand their personality. So I'm not delivering Metallica to a Garth Brooks crowd, or I'm not delivering caviar to a cheeseburger crowd. It's so much of that stuff. And so it's a highly vulnerable moment for the consumer or for my client. And so we got to make a lot of stuff go right. Well, this particular night, the artist had played 2 nights before over in Europe, and they were on a 12 or 13 hour international flight to get home. And, you're sitting on a plane for 12, 13 hours. You only have so many things at your disposal, but an open bar in first class is one of them. And frankly, they were just in no position to do the job they need to do. But all of the fans are there, all the friends are there. You don't turn 40 the next day, you turn 40 that day. We got one shot to get it right. And frankly, we're lucky that so many things did go right that night, but the concert portion of the evening did not. And that's a heartbreaking thing, and a lot of it, the everyday guest that's there, they don't know how things are supposed to go. But my client and I, they've made the decision to spend all this money and divert all this energy that they could have been spending with their family or building their business or whatever. They've exerted all this energy to have that ultra personal evening, and for such a big moment of the evening to not go as planned, it's heartbreaking. And in that moment, there's you don't get a do-over. And so it just reinforced the need for us to just be ultra sensitive to every decision we're making, and go above and beyond to create that experience. And that night, effective immediately, we no longer book bands that we're going to have to travel 15 hours by air to get to a gig. And if we are, like, as we worked in these other countries, now I put a day between when they travel and when they're going to perform, and I pay extra for that to happen so that they can get their head right when they're in the new country. So
what happened with the birthday? Did you have to grab a guitar, or what happened there?
So the artist went on stage. They played about 20 minutes of cover music. They played none of their hits. They fell off the front of the stage, and so I paid. We had a cover band that was closing the evening, and I just, in a hurry went in and said, y'all are on the stage, not in 1 hour, but in 1 minute. So get on there right now. I'm paying you extra money. By the way, I need you to play all of these hits that you probably never played before, but you need to figure it out because these were the songs the artist was supposed to play that they didn't play. And then the next day, it was, canceled flights to hat in hand, go to my customer's home and hand them a great big old check as a refund and pray that I'd be able to work it out on the other end with the band that had messed up. And, in some of these other situations, I'm very proud of the fact that in the very rare situation, again, we've done over 5,000 events. A lot of events we have more than one artist on. And so I don't know how many artists I've actually booked, 7,000 of them at this point. But in the very rare situation, even, in the case of that gentleman whose mother passed away same day, I've been very fortunate. We've been able to get another band in place same day. I've never had a show just outright get canceled. And again, but that's a readiness. That's a preparedness. Like I'm not necessarily going over with my customer, okay, if X band goes away, we're going to pivot to Train or Goo Goo Dolls or something like that. But in the back of my mind, I know where I'm going to go. And so we always generally know who's in the area, generally know who's available. So if there is a significant cancellation, we can be like, hey, so-and-so can't be here, but I know so-and-so is in the area. Can we get them over here? And it almost always works out that way. And so,
Nice.
and luckily, I'm not the only person in the food chain that's motivated to fix that problem. There's a lot of people that are financially motivated for those shows to go off without a hitch. So when those problems arise, very fortunately, there's generally a small army of people that are highly incentivized to make sure that the problem gets fixed quickly.
Just
So
hitting the phones, making it happen.
That's
the
right.
show must go on.
That's right.
Tell me,
you're in trouble when they're not willing to answer their phone because they know that they're out of options too. So that's when they can't answer the phone, when they're not answering the phone, they know that they don't have any options to solve anything. So they're just not going to deal with the mess in the moment. So
dang. Walter, what was the first band or event or maybe music player, whatever, where you felt like this was above, like, oh, I landed something here.
That's right.
First one.
There have been.
Okay. Yeah, I imagine there's tiers.
There's tiers.
Right, you get the local. You're like, oh, we got this cool cover band that's pretty big.
Yeah. First major band I ever booked was a guy named David Lee Murphy, and a little Dust on the Bottle, great country music singer. That was like, okay, ooh, this is big time. Then first time one of my bands sold out a venue. It was lightning in a bottle moment. We booked the band before they blew up. By the time the show happened, they'd blown up, and so that was a big moment. That was a band called Cross Canadian Ragweed. Then I did a private party. It's the first time I'd done something that crossed the $100,000 mark, and it was 4 or 5 bands working one party, but the party cost over $100,000. It's like, that was more money than my parents made combined in a year by a long shot. And so the fact that someone would spend that much money. Next one for me was first time a customer spent over $1 million on one night. And it was just like, all right, we got like a internationally famous superstar on the stage. And so that was pretty remarkable. The next level for me went to a band called ZZ Top, where Billy Gibbons is a great friend of mine now. I'm very fortunate for that friendship. And but we booked them in 5 days. 5 days between when I called them and when they were playing. And that there's a lot of street cred that you have to be able to make a call like that. So that was wildly successful. Then I remember the next level for me, I booked the Eagles for a private party.
Oh, nice.
And, now you have one of the biggest, most successful rock bands in the history of music that have made the decision, just like all those people in the crowd, those, Glenn Fry and Don Henley are going to be at that thing that you're putting together. And that was really, really big for me. And then kind of on that same level, but different, I convinced George Strait to do a private party one time, and he doesn't do it. Just can count on one hand the number of private parties he's ever done in his life where he was paid to be there. And I had one of the first ones. And that was just a really big deal that involved me like getting interviewed by him. And so that was just a very surreal moment. and then for me doing when I did a deal with Garth Brooks, and I'm not going to go into all the details of how it all happened, but ultimately I brokered the deal. It was me and Garth. There wasn't attorneys or managers or agents or all these people. It was me and Garth working side by side, put a deal together that he would be at, and the result of that evening was tens of millions of dollars went to children's charity, and a lot of really good things came from that evening. But it's he and I working side by side, and been very fortunate. Now we've done a lot of those things together, and then you layer in some of these milestone moments in history, like a presidential inauguration and things like that. I got to help produce the first CFP college national championship game, and so some of those moments that only happened one time, and I got to be there for them was I'm pretty proud of. So that was like 15 answers to your question, but it's every one of them. There's I call it the war room, because we all get together after it's over and we go, can you believe that this, and we had to do this, we had to do that. And, there's been moments where, to solve a problem, it was like, okay, where can I rent a 747? Oh, the Rolling Stones have one right now. Let me go rent this. Let me call the Rolling Stones and see if I can borrow their 747 real quick. And it's just like all of these moments that have happened in my career was like, are you kidding me? And I've just seen God's hand in every step of this way. And my product in the entertainment world, which is not all that different from the consumer packaged products world, is, I create that thing that creates a memory that hopefully is so profound and so positive that these people remember it for the rest of their lives. And it doesn't matter what business. I had a very smart guy tell me one time, you can run your business or your business can run you. I've had those moments where I've run my businesses, and I've had those moments where the businesses have run me, and my life is very different when I'm letting things run me. And so it's just taking the steps and taking the time to do it the right way to run your business. And it's it's also tough sometimes, particularly when you're starting a business, to separate yourself from it. So much of my identity was tied to this entertainment company. It is me. It is who I am. But nothing but stress and heartache comes from that, even in the good times. So it's finding that and treating it almost like a plant. That you're going to plant the seed. You're going to pick the right soil. You're going to pick the right sunlight. You're going to pick the right moisture, and hopefully you grow that thing. And you got to treat it that way. And when you do that, even in the good times or bad times, it's very difficult to find, or it's very easy to find joy. So I take that stuff pretty serious.
That's awesome. Walter, I love it. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Well, thank you for having me. This was incredible. And I don't know how much time we spent here talking, but I've enjoyed every minute of it. And I can tell you right now, one of these things I'll tell you is that you've connected with someone that you admire when I feel like I could go another 3 or 4 hours with you easily. And so for that, I thank you for that. I really respect
totally agree.
you.
Totally agree. Yeah. Thank you so much. It's funny because I was like, so we normally do 52-minute shows so that they can air on the radio. But it's interesting because you end up talking to people just like yourself that have so much life experience. Like we're getting all this knowledge, this information, this experience. We can go another couple minutes, right? So
that's right.
Well, I appreciate cool, man.
It's cool. Just been wonderful. And truthfully, I hope we get to do this again. This has just been a real honor for me.
Yeah, absolutely. I wish you great success with Kinzie Foods.
Thank you, sir.
And I can tell you, when you sell a business, that exit, I can tell you from my experience, when I sold one of my businesses, that was one of the best days of my life.
Oh man.
I
can't wait. That's and there, I don't have like this vision or goal of what it's going to be like. It's just, it kind of goes back to that same notion of, they chose to be there that night because of something I built. That's the satisfaction I'm looking for is, someone decides they want something because of all the work that I put in to build it. And at that point, it's not about the price tag. It's not about what it is. All that stuff's going to be gravy and great, but I just look forward to the satisfaction that I've built something that is so remarkable that there's other groups that feel like they need it and they want it. And so God willing, we'll have that experience one of these days. But I'll just tell you this last piece of one of my billionaire, multiple times over billionaire clients. He sold over 10 companies over $1 billion each time. And he told me, well, I asked him, I said, when did you know that it was time to sell? This was after he sold his first business for $3 or $4 billion. And he said, there is no way. He said, I didn't have this grand exit plan. I didn't have this vision of how this would go. I woke up every single day and I thought, what are the things I can do today that's going to put my family in the best position possible? And I've just been doing that. And I've done it every day for years and years and years. And one time someone came to me and they said, you know, what you've created here is worth this much. And we'd like to pay you that much money for it. And he thought, okay, it's worth it for me. I'll take that much. And he was like, but we didn't have this exit plan or this vision of it had to happen by this date or this time or for this much. None of that. Wake up every day and say, what can I do to put my family in the best position possible? And every decision I make every single day is around what can I do to put my family in the best position possible. And when you think about it that way, someday somebody's going to pay you so much for this thing that you can't say no.
Fair. I love it. Walter, where can people find you?
KinzieFoods.com. KinzieFoods.com. We're also the handle Kinzie Foods on every single social media platform. I'd love for you to follow us on our journey. Check out the site. Give us, even if you don't buy anything, just give me feedback. info@KinzieFoods.com. You got any advice, any thoughts, any criticism, positivity, whatever you want to bring, it's all a gift to me. I look forward to hearing from you guys, and just so grateful that you trust us to even take a look.
Walter, I'll tell you, I'm excited, and I can imagine if I had Kinzie Foods, I feel like the big excitement would be when I'm at some park or something like that and kids are eating their food and I see somebody that I don't know with a bottle of Kinzie Foods barbecue sauce. Yeah. I feel like that would be like, oh yeah, that's awesome.
My daytime version of that is when I see an order come in and I'm like, oh wait, how do I know this person? Where did I find this person? And then it's like, oh wait, I don't. Like they've interacted with somebody. They've interacted with somebody somewhere along the way, whether it was through our efforts or through a friend or whatever, and they just made the decision that something we've done along the way, they've committed to go in. And it's just like, I had one this morning. I'm just like, it was someone in California and have no idea where they found us, but they found us and they made the decision to spend money with us. And it just fires me up every time.
That is totally fair. I get that as well. That is fantastic.
That's right.
Walter, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you for having me. Again, I'll do this as many times as you want. I'm so grateful for this experience.
I love it. This has been Authentic Business Adventures, the business program that brings you the struggles, stories, and triumphant successes of business owners across the land. My name is James Cademan, and Authentic Business Adventures is brought to you by Calls on Call, offering call answering services for service businesses across the country on the web at callsoncall.com. And of course, the Bold Business Book, a book for the entrepreneur in all of us, available wherever fine books are sold. If you're listening to this on the web, if you could do us a huge favor, give it the big old thumbs up, subscribe, and of course, share it with your entrepreneurial friends, especially those friends that love great barbecue sauce, which should be just about everybody, vegetarian or not, right?
That's right.
As well as those that love to be entertained and need to understand exactly what's going on in the back end, which, as every entrepreneur, you always want to know what's going on in the back end, right?
That's right.
Thank you. Walter, can you tell us that website one more time?
KinzieFoods.com. KinzieFoods.com.
Excellent. We'd like to thank you, our wonderful listeners, as well as our guest, Walter Kinzie of Kinzie Foods. Past episodes can be found morning, noon, and night at the podcast link found at drawincustomers.com. Thank you for joining us. We will see you next week. I want you to stay awesome. And if you do nothing else, enjoy your business.